The feud between Golden Girls Betty White and Bea Arthur was a lot worse than we all could have imagined. Bea Arthur would refer to Betty White as the C word on multiple occasions, and when Betty, Rue, and Estelle all agreed that they wanted the show to continue after 7 years, it was Bea Arthur who would be the reason that the show would ultimately come to an end. A producer from the Golden Girls recently gave insider information on the feud between Betty White and Bea Arthur, and as your mom and grandma's favorite influencer, I am just dying to talk about it with you. You see, Betty White was very honest during her lifetime, saying that Bea Arthur was not one of her biggest fans. She said that most of the Golden Girls got along, but it was Bea Arthur who didn't like her. She said that Bea Arthur could not stand her positive attitude, and that if Betty White was in a good mood, Bea Arthur would be furious. We recently found out just how furious Bea Arthur would get. The Hollywood Reporter reports that producer Marsha Posner Williams was speaking on a panel at the Newhouse Hollywood, and she went on record to say that when that red light was on and they were filming, they couldn't be more professional, but that when it was off, those two could not warm up to each other even if they were being cremated together. She says that Bea Arthur would call her on the phone and say things like, "I ran into that, see you next Tuesday at the grocery store, I am going to write her a letter." And I guess Marsha told her to get over it, but she didn't. She says that one time she and her husband were attending dinner at her house. Not even 30 seconds after stepping foot inside her home, Bea Arthur was referring to Betty White as a "see you next Tuesday." He also shares that the show would have continued, but it was Bea Arthur that said no, which is why the show ultimately came to an end. Marsha also shared that Bea Arthur hated when Betty White would break in the middle of a scene to talk to the studio audience.